Welcome to Health Super 7. I am your host Irene Okechukwu. Today we are shining a light on a silent but serious health issue affecting more and more young adults: hypertension, also known as high blood pressure. Once thought to be a disease of older people, but now increasingly common among people in their 20s and 30s, and often without any symptoms. Hypertension occurs when the force of blood against the artery walls is consistently too high. A normal reading is below 120 to 80 millimeters. Anything above that, especially over 130 millimeters, may be signal a problem, especially when it's left unchecked. Hypertension can lead to heart disease, kidney failure, stroke, and even sudden death. Today on the show, I have with me Dr. Mutsala Ngabia. He is a consultant and also a cardiologist of Maitama District Hospital. If you want to be part of the show as usual, you can follow us on our social media handle on Official Rapid TV. Stay tuned, and when we return, we are going to meet with our guests. Young adults, rising prevalence and causes. Doctor, you're so relaxed. I don't know where to place you, but you're welcome to the program Health 247.
Thank you for having me, Irene. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome. All right, can you just tell us a bit about hypertension and why it's becoming more common among adults in our society today?
Hypertension basically means when the heart is overworking itself to do what it normally does. Ordinarily, the heart pumps blood to all parts of the body at a particular, it has to overcome a particular pressure of about less than 120 over 80 millimeter of mercury. The upper one is called the systolic and the lower one is called the diastolic. Ordinarily, that is the normal blood pressure. So when the heart needs to pump against a pressure of 130, 140, 150, 160 over 85, 90, 100, that is hypertension.
Wow.
So once a person's blood pressure is above officially 140 over 90 millimeter of mercury, the person is described as having what? Hypertension or high blood pressure. Ordinarily, these days we don't actually wait until the blood pressure gets up to 140 over 90 before we start getting raising the alarm bell once the blood pressure is above 130 over 85 millimeter of mercury. So that is what is called pre-hypertension. Okay. So because the complications that comes with pre-hypertension is almost as good as the one that's come with established high hypertension. And again, pre-hypertension, that's anything above 130 over 85 millimeter of mercury, is a window that the person needs to work on so that he doesn't develop hypertension eventually.
Interesting. So at what range or what age do we consider the person at risk of getting hypertension?
Traditionally, in the 60s and 70s, basically we have two types of hypertension. We have what we call essential or the primary hypertension, and we have what is called the secondary hypertension. When it is secondary hypertension, it means that there is a specific cause. There's a particular disease condition that the person is suffering from, that if you identify it and you treat it, the hypertension is going to reverse. That is secondary hypertension. But it is primary or essential hypertension when there is no identified cause. So that is basically due to risk. Due to family history and age.
Really?
Age. So traditionally, the age of onset for essential hypertension used to be above 40 years of age.
Okay.
But currently or recently, what we are seeing is that the age of onset has reduced drastically. I mean, that brings us to what you are interested in your topic
Yeah,
of
younger
today
people.
in younger people. Yeah. So, interestingly or sadly, more and more young people are coming down with essential hypertension. I mean, you see a young man, 22, 23, 25, with high blood pressure or
Yeah.
hypertension. Ordinarily you will have snapped your finger and said, oh, okay, this must be secondary hypertension. But no, now it is no longer secondary hypertension, it's essential hypertension. So the age of onset for high blood pressure or hypertension has actually reduced drastically. In fact, even people in their secondary schools, we're talking about people, teenagers, are now coming down with what? Hypertension.
Interesting. But are there any recent statistics showing how prevalent hypertension is to people who are at the age of 40?
Absolutely. Studies, our doctors, our physicians, our cardiologists, our nephrologists are undergoing epidemiological studies. They are carrying out epidemiological studies every day. There are recent studies, even as late as 2024, that have been published that have shown that currently we talk about incidence of about, some studies have said that about 5 to 17% of people less than 30 years of age now have high blood pressure. Some have quoted prevalence as high as 25.2% of young adults coming down with what? High blood pressure. So that's how serious it is compared to 20, 30 years ago, when you talk about incidence of, let's say, less than 1%. So you can understand when you juxtapose and see how prevalent this condition has become in young adults.
Interesting. So what could be the leading cause of hypertension in the young adults of today?
Unhealthy lifestyle.
What do you mean by unhealthy lifestyle?
Unhealthy diet.
Okay.
People go to McDonald's, Mr. Biggs. While Mr. Biggs is
Kind of
rapidly, is the kind of food, preserved food, processed food, with tons and tons of salt in there, tons and tons of fat in those foods. While in Western countries, Mr. Big, McDonald's are disappearing. McDonald's and Mr. Biggs are opening more and more shop in this part of the world. People are patronizing people. People live sedentary lifestyle. Young people live sedentary lifestyle. They drive their cars. They don't trek. They don't walk. They don't trek. So they are sedentary. They're from car to the fast food joints, all sitting down in one place. So people don't engage in exercise. People don't eat the right foods. Okay. So these are unhealthy diet, I've mentioned, sedentary lifestyle. So of course, the immediate what you see is obesity. Okay, so which is also a very good contributing factor to development of what? Hypertension. Okay, obesity, and it's direct sequelae or direct consequence of the sedentary lifestyle that we just talked about. And the unhealthy, that is in more processed foods rich in fatty calories, sugary foods, and calories, and fat, processed fat. So those are what we see, as being the contributing factors. And of course, family history is also there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody that has a close relative, father and mother, an immediate sibling having hypertension, is at a predominantly increased risk of developing what? High blood pressure as well. And then of course, there are some certain conditions, genetic conditions that people are born with, that can also predispose them to what? High blood pressure.
Interesting. You're just talking about the lifestyle that people live that could lead to hypertension. So how do lifestyle factors like stress, diet, and screen time contribute to high blood pressure?
Thank you very much for mentioning screen time. Yeah,
I know you hate that.
It contributes, of course. If people stay on their screen for a long time, that's directly into sedentary lifestyle.
Okay.
Young people stay screen time 16 hours in a day sometimes. Okay. So that has chopped off, that has taken off their sleep time. A young adult is supposed to get at least 8 hours, maybe
Sleep.
10 hours of sleep. But people don't sleep, people stay on their data, so of course. And so they tend to develop what they add to what their stress levels, because
Okay.
there's a particular time of the day, specifically between 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Okay, that is the time that there's a certain hormones in the body that get secreted at that time. So people should be sleeping at that point in time.
Oh, really?
Yes, people should be sleeping. So if people are not sleeping at that time, it's significantly add to their stress levels.
Okay.
Now, if people don't sleep, if somebody lose sleep 1 hour at that time, he may need 2 to 3 hours in the daytime to
Recover.
recover
Oh, really?
for that. So these are all things that contribute to some of these things that we're talking about right now.
Interesting. Okay. What role does genetic play? Can a young, otherwise healthy person still be at risk due to the family history? Maybe, for instance, me, if I'm healthy, and maybe in my family history, we have cases of hypertension. How do genetics play that role?
Generally, of course, most things with humans are described as based on what nature and nurture.
Okay.
Nature, of course, you talk about genetics.
Yeah.
Definitely, genetics coming in a lot of things. That's but our healthy life and even a disease condition, of course. And then non-communicable diseases are where the effects of genetics predominate. Hypertension, diabetes, cardiac diseases. There's a strong influence of genetics. So, certainly, if there's a mother, father, it's almost like a doubling of the risks of developing hypertension and other non-communicable diseases. So that's why parents, that have hypertension, that have diabetes, should start lifestyle modification, should start dietary modification, should start prevention of hypertension and diabetes. Do you know when?
That's for the children?
For the children, do you know when? From maybe 2 years of age.
Wow.
Yes.
That early?
Yes. Should start inculcating them, notifying them, educating them to be aware that they have a risk of developing these conditions at that
Well, the children need a lot of food, and they need all the food, classes of food to grow.
Yes.
So you can't deprive them of that.
They need all the classes of food, but they don't want all the classes of food.
Really?
Yes. There's a difference between the food they need and the food that they want.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right, viewers, it's been Dr. Ngabia, also known as Mutala, who is telling us about hypertension and the prevalent case on the young people. We are going to go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue on this conversation. So just stay tuned while we return. Alright, viewers, welcome back on this break, and we are still talking on the rising case of hypertension in the youth. So over to you, doctor. Is there any link between mental health issues and such as anxiety, depression, in hypertension on the young people?
Absolutely, there is a link both ways.
Okay.
People that have developed hypertension have tendency of what? Becoming anxious and eventually getting depressed.
Okay.
Depression can be up to 25% of people with chronic conditions will eventually have depression. And then, of course, people that are the anxious type, type of personality, they're different personalities. So the anxious type will, of course, have higher chance of developing hypertension than those that are less anxious. Okay, so they are linked, either contributing, anxiety, of course, contributing, because the heart rates, of course, generally get the heart rate to beat faster in people that are anxious, and then so it has a direct link. Okay, the more the heart becomes faster, it has a direct link. Blood pressure is a product of how the heart pumps, and then how fast it beats. So anxiety, yes, it's linked to a development of what?
The high blood
High
pressure.
blood pressure.
Reason I'm saying this is because most of the youths they're into relationship, and for instance, if some relationship does not work out for them, you see them going into depression.
Yes,
And,
stressors and triggers.
Exactly.
Stressors and triggers. Certainly, heartbreaks and
It's common.
triggers, and this may not be the immediate cause of high blood pressure.
Okay, it wouldn't.
But then, of course, it will trigger it. Somebody has his own hypertension, has developed his blood pressure, he's been on the borderline, and then he now develops an emotional breakdown. Of course, that triggers it.
Because you know the person, if the person is heartbroken, the
Yes.
person begins to think,
certainly,
think,
of
think.
course, yeah. Once their emotional breakdown, emotional trigger to breakdown, and all those things, it gets trigger, and this and then raises the blood pressure. Of course, except if it is sometimes if it is persistent, or the person if does not get away or move on, it stays. Grief reaction have certain stages.
I love that word, move
physiological.
on.
Yeah, if the person does not move on, then of course that's a recipe for. So it can be, if it is persistent, it can be a recipe for developing hypertension. But ordinarily, yes, it triggers. It's a stressor. It triggers ordinarily, because assuming the person is already taking his medications, and then he forget it at that point in time.
Okay.
Of course, naturally, what do you expect? The effects of emotional breakdown, and then the fact that he also has that point in time has forgotten to take his medication. So it's a multiplicity of factors, really. And so so at that point in time, those that are close by should know that they have active roles to play by reminding, by consoling, and then by reminding whoever is involved to
move on,
take his medications
and move on,
of course, naturally.
All right, so we're moving faster. So the next question is, are young people typically aware that high blood pressure is detected? Like some of them, they are not really aware, but now I'm asking this question, are they typically aware that they have high blood pressure?
Even adults are not aware that they have high blood pressure. I'm not talking about young people that are
so it's just a
more
question.
carefree. Oh yes, I'm answering your question, Irene, because hypertension is actually described as a silent killer because it's basically asymptomatic.
Okay.
Majority of the times it's asymptomatic. Okay. So people don't get to know. The only time they get to know is that until they measure.
Okay.
People must always, if every slightest opportunity they have to what? Check their blood pressure. If you find yourself in the hospital, whether you have leg pain, measure your blood pressure.
Interesting.
If you accompany somebody and they are measuring for the person, measure. So that's about the only way that people get to know that they have high blood pressure. Quite a number of times people will come with something else and will say, okay, we'll measure the BP and say, your leg pain or your leg injury has saved your life because we've discovered that your blood pressure is very high. Okay, it's in the ceiling. So forget about whatever it is and treat this one first before you even proceed. So typically, high blood pressure is asymptomatic. The only time that people get to know when they start having high headache, the blood pressure has gone very high up. Okay, or when it has damaged the vital organs.
Wow.
Maybe it has damaged the heart, maybe it has damaged the kidneys, maybe it has damaged the brain, it has caused a stroke. So people will now have symptoms of those disease of those organs. They will be breathing up, they may have body swelling, so those are when they present with what you can describe as a complaint. But ordinarily, hypertension is asymptomatic, it doesn't present with any problem.
Wow. So what symptom, if any, should prompt a young person to get himself checked or herself checked?
Like we said earlier on, if there is family history.
Family history.
If people are...
maybe you just mention something of pains in the leg.
Yes, if they have... like which you mentioned, it's an emotional breakdown, they are stressed up, so they should be aware that they need to. And then, of course, when they start having headache, when they start having complaint, chest pain, sometimes can be a trigger to that there may be a problem with the heart as a result of the high blood pressure. That is when then people should then seek medical care.
So how often should they check their blood pressure?
For those that have established blood pressure, that have been diagnosed with hypertension already, every week is not too frequent to take their blood pressure.
Every week?
Every week.
So that means they should have a BP kit, sir?
Yes, absolutely. They should have a BP kit at home. Okay? They should get a small booklet, be measuring and keeping in the house. And then, like those that are at risk within few weeks, maybe 8 weeks, they should make sure that they have used the opportunity to check. And if there are programs like we are going to be running, we are going to be commemorating the World Hypertension Day very soon. Actually, this is partly why we're here, to create awareness as part of the World Hypertension Day that will be organized by the FCT Public Health Department, starting from the 17th of May. The World Hypertension Day is actually from 17th to about 19th of May. We're going to run blood pressure screening. We're going to be, giving BP kits, as part of the World Hypertension Day that comes up this year. So people should use those opportunities
to go and check
their blood pressure as frequent as possible.
So what preventive steps can young adults take to reduce the risk of hypertension? You just mentioned they should check, right?
We just mentioned, yes.
Yeah.
People should be aware. People should live active lifestyle. In fact, people should actually, young people should revert back to what I can describe as factory moths.
What do you mean by that?
People should go back to the traditional lifestyle that we used to know.
If you go back to traditional lifestyle, we are not moving forward now, we're moving backward.
No, in terms of blood pressure and non-communicable disease, actually that's moving forward. Of course, things change, but they don't seem to change. It's a popular lyric, I don't know which one of these musicians, that the more things change, the more they remain the same, right? So, yes, we should trek. If people will go out on social outing, on dating, they should trek. Why not?
But at least they should just encourage us to exercise more.
Exercise, but trekking can be a part of exercise. Park your car once in a while and trek until you sweat. So it's all part of the distance. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that exercise at least 3 times a week. If people can do it every day, fine. At least 30 minutes of fast walk, of riding bicycle. If you go to China, if you see the number of people that ride bicycle.
They ride bicycle a lot,
That's why the Asians, the Japanese,
they live longer.
They live longer, yes. They take seafood. They don't eat all these processed foods. So, diet, of course, we've talked about that. The things that we mentioned that are causing it are things that people should focus on. Okay.
But right now, is there any medication that one needs to take, or the kind of lifestyle the person needs to change just to ensure that you do not
at first detection? If the blood pressure is not so high, if somebody is caught at just maybe 140 over 90, 150 over 90, then of course there's a window that lifestyle modification can actually reverse the blood pressure. It will normalize.
All right, lastly, what message would you have to give to the young people who think hypertension is only a disease for older adults? Just like me, I used to think hypertension is for older people.
Hypertension is no longer a disease of older people. It's everybody's business now. Everybody should be aware. Everybody, the journalists like you, employers, everybody should be aware. Everybody should, once in a while, screen, measure the BP of all their staff. Secondary school, proprietors, government should invite us. We are ready. They should come. We should screen all people in SS class, even JS class.
Wow.
So that we will catch those that have signs, those that have the tendency of developing high pressure, so that they'll be aware. And then, of course, they institute lifestyle, and then so public places, government agencies, companies, people should be aware. People should create awareness, especially those that have family history, those that think that they have more risks, should visit hospital more frequently. People should not wait until they are sick before going to the hospital. Voluntary people should go to the hospital. We should inculcate the habit of what? Check. In fact, in other climes, it's during people's bad days that their hospitals remind them
to go check.
They keep on sending you texts. So, of course, we can and we should also introduce some of these measures in this part of the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mutala
Thank you, Irene,
Ingavia.
for having me.
It's
been
really
a
nice
pleasure.
having you in our program Health 247, and at least my viewers have learned something. If they have not learned me, I have. So it is been Dr. Mutala Ingavia who has been telling us more about hypertension, more on the young adults. So hypertension isn't just an old person's disease anymore. As young adults, being proactive about our health today can prevent serious complications tomorrow. Take control, stay informed, and stay healthy. It's been me, Irene Okechukwu, your host on the program Health 247. Thank you for being part of the program, and see you next time and same time. Bye for now.